Hey fellas, how you doing? It's Johnny. Wanted to make this video today because I've been working with a girl on my 6 weeks program, and I've been helping her through social anxiety. She's incredibly brave, and I wanted to make this video because I wanted to share more of my story. I know I've shared my story many times, but you can never share a story like this enough times, because there's always different elements of the story that I know that's going to help people and going to connect with people. And also it helps me to share this stuff as well, because any old memories I get, I like doing these videos, speaking about it. It makes me feel good, and it's very honest and it's very necessary. So this video is really about, I suppose, the mental illness of social anxiety. I'm really going to talk about how this, because I never really realised it was a mental illness years ago. I used to associate mental illness with something that's really serious, and there's a whole stigma around people that are mentally ill, that they're crazy and they're loopy, and that's actually not the case. That's just typical, you know, labeling. Our society labels people, and then people, you know, look down on people, have stigmas, and there's so many different mental illnesses. It's just different extremes, and to some extent we're all mentally ill. We all have voices that tell us that we're not good enough, we can't do things, people would think this about us. There's a million voices that we experience every day. It's just a question of how we manage those voices. So anyway, for years I lived in fear. For years I lived in fear, and it's interesting, only since I've overcome my fears around social anxiety, low self-esteem, protective personality, just layers upon layers upon layers of fears, it's only now I've come out of that predicament can I really see how awful I was, the condition I was in. And I'm not saying that in any way to seek sympathy. I'm very blessed because I've overcome the majority of the big fears, and now I'm teaching other people. Those fears show up, well, I get to see, you know, my own fears that other people are going through. So it's inspiring, but it's also humbling, and it brings me back, which is why I'm able to bring these stories out. And my fear was really uncomfortable. It was one that I was terrified of speaking about, because I was scared of my dad, and I was actually scared of my family. I didn't trust my dad. I didn't fully trust my mum. It's so hurtful to have to admit this, but these were the voices that were going on. And of course I didn't trust my dad, because my dad was abusive towards me. My dad bullied me for more than 10 years. He was physically the bully, and psychologically he intimidated me. I couldn't look him in the eye, I was so afraid of him. And I had to live like this for years, and most times I felt nothing but distrust living in my house. So that's why I was experiencing so much panic attacks. I was always so nervous. As soon as my mum would come in the room with my dad, my mum would always ask me what's wrong with me. So despite the fact of really loving my mum so much, I couldn't fully trust her. I actually realised only years later I couldn't trust anyone. There was only one person that I actually really trusted, and that was my nan. I trusted my nan 100%, but I didn't trust people. And this was something that was on the unconscious, but of course sometimes it would come to the conscious, and when it came to the conscious, it terrified me, and it made me really angry. It actually made me hate my dad, and it made me hate my mum. It's an awful thing to say, but this is the truth. And it made me hate people. So in periodic moments or periodic times over a course of 3 weeks or a month or months, I would suffer these awful depressions, and I would feel suicidal, I would feel trapped. I feel that I couldn't tell anyone, because how could I go report my dad to the police? How could I do that? That would be betrayal. And I was afraid he might kill me. I was afraid he might kill me. And it was just so much shame around not liking your own dad, and then sometimes being confused because you think you do love him, you're not sure, so you're in confusion, and feeling a lot of anger towards your mum and not wanting to hurt your parents, but living in fear all the time, and then going outside and being frightened of people, and then not understanding why you're frightened of people, because you think, you're asking yourself, how can I be frightened of people? You don't, it's not normal, and there's nowhere to turn to, and then thinking, I've got to turn to God. And then these voices that come up say, but God doesn't exist, and this is crazy to believe in a God. But then thinking, well, I feel something, and just living in hypocrisy. It was the contradiction of the confusion. And that's why often or not I always went and stayed at my nan's. I felt so safe with my nan, and that's when I really realised that this ain't normal. It's not normal to be treated like this by my dad. It's not. I shouldn't be tolerating this. I shouldn't be having someone call me a cunt, call me a stupid cunt, call me a mummy's boy, call me weak, just because I don't agree with him, or just for no reason. Do you know how afraid I was? I couldn't even speak around my dad. And my mum knew it, the whole family knew it. It was so embarrassing. I actually had paranoid thoughts. I thought my family hate me. I thought they thought I was disgusting. So it affected my self-confidence. It affected my relationships with people. And even though I made friends growing up, and I did have some good times, it didn't stop it, because the good times didn't last very long. So when I'd have a good time, feel safe, I'd feel great, but it always came back. And this bullying mental illness, or these psychological thoughts, they bullied me all my life. They bullied me from age 15 to 20 to 25, and I tried to go out into the world and I tried to achieve things in some way to find some relief from this pain. I tried to pretend it didn't exist. I tried to rationalise and pretend, no, my dad's just giving me discipline, it's normal. But it wasn't normal, because when I met other people and I've seen, well, their family doesn't treat him like that, and he was psychotic the way he'd treat me, and sometimes he would apologise, but it wasn't right. Because when someone treats you like that, it affects you. So trauma is not something you can ignore. You can't just pretend it doesn't exist. It's not like someone gets upset with you. That's different, being disciplined. But that's what my dad did. He bullied me, and every time I tried to stand up to him, he threatened me with violence. So I couldn't really do anything. And obviously, at that age, I couldn't go anywhere. I had nowhere to live, and I didn't want to live in my parents' house. I was frightened of them. And I'd feel the same towards my mum. Although my mum was a lot nicer, I just didn't trust her. I didn't trust her because I would think, how could she let my dad do this to me? How could she let my dad treat me like this? What is going on in this house? It was a dysfunctional family. And I just thought, I can't tell anyone this. And then I'd go and speak to my nan, and my nan was always so kind, and she was just so good to me. I just love her. And she would always say, I know it's not right. And I'd think to myself, my dad doesn't treat other people like this, but he treats his son like this. So I must be disgusting. I must be no good. And then when I'd go and meet new people, I would always feel I can't trust these people, because as soon as people look at me, I think they don't like me. And this is where the social anxiety developed. And it was subtle at first, because I think it's very normal in psychology. I've done a lot of research. I haven't read loads of books, but I've done a lot of practical work, and I've just been intuitive. I've just understood my own problem, and I overcome this 2 years ago. I finally overcome social phobia, and I just thought I'm just a bit nervous around people because I'm naturally a shy guy, and actually discovered that I'm not a shy guy. I'm actually really confident. I was always confident. My dad just terrified me. So the reason I didn't speak much around people, because I was frightened. I was playing out that pattern that my dad had created. So I got so used to coming home when I finished work or come from school. This went on for over 10-15 years. When my dad come in the room, if I was in a conversation with my mum, because I was a bit more comfortable with my mum, when he came in, I would completely go silent. I'd be awkward. The whole atmosphere would change. And I knew that my dad knew that I knew it was all like a theatrical show. And my mum was afraid. And for many years I was angry towards my mum. I just unconsciously I couldn't forgive her. I couldn't forgive him. And a few times I lost my temper. I stood up to my dad, but I could never really sit down and say, this is what you did to me, it's wrong. You bullied me, you physically put your hands on me, you beat me, you hit me, I pissed down my trousers, you made me ashamed, you made me not trust anyone. You destroyed me, you completely destroyed me, you made me feel worthless. Every time I made friendships and I liked people, it would always be spoiled by the thoughts in my head that, oh, I might not be able to trust this person. And it could be, it could have been when it was a beautiful relationship with another friend, a man, fellow man, kid. It would always be interrupted with those thoughts that, what if he tries to turn on me? And of course, that's why I had anger issues. All the anger my dad put on me, I took out on other people. And I seemed to keep making friendships that were dysfunctional. The friendships would start off nice, and it was so confusing because I'd sometimes think, is it my fault? Am I doing something wrong? Am I being horrible to people? Because I actually thought I'm actually a nice person. But of course the voices would come up and say, don't seek sympathy, because these were lots of the things my dad said. So when people criticize you when you're younger, especially people in authority, especially your parents are the first people that you're meant to trust. When you don't trust your parents, your dad or your mum, how are you supposed to trust other people? For years I was giving myself a hard time, and I didn't speak up because I didn't want to betray my dad, and I didn't want to be seen as someone who was seeking help. I associated seeking help as weak, so I went out and I tried to seek some kind of approval, or try to redeem myself. That's the word. And I redeemed myself in the only way I knew how to, which was being violent, which was, you know, being aggressive. And I got into fights all the time, and I hated fighting. I absolutely hated it. And I didn't feel, it's funny, I was teaching a girl today and I aligned on the same truth as her. I never felt like I fitted in, and I didn't fit in. I was different. And I realized years later I was different because I was ambitious, and I was a good person, but the environment I lived in, which to start with was my house, wouldn't allow me to express myself. My dad told me to go out and be a carpenter. I didn't want to be a carpenter. It's nothing against being a carpenter. He placed his fears on me. He placed his limitations on me, and then he accused me of being lazy. I wasn't lazy, I was terrified. I was absolutely petrified of people. I hated eye contact. It made me feel ill. It made me feel sick. It made me sweat, it made me shake. I didn't like people touching me unless they knew me really well. I didn't feel comfortable sometimes when my mum hugged me. It made me feel dirty. And this was all because of criticism from my dad when I was younger. It was verbal criticism and physical violence. And a few times I stood up to him, and every time I stood up to him, he backed down, but he always threatened me with, I'm going to throw you out of the house, or if you say that again, I'm going to punch you, I'm going to hit you. So he was hitting me, I don't know, from as early as 13, 14, slapping me in the face, attacking me, kicking me. All this went on, and I should have reported him. I should have went to the police, but I didn't do it. I didn't want to bring shame on my family. But it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare, and being around people was difficult. It took me a long time to relax, and it was so nice when I could feel safe around people, because then I could fully be myself and express myself. Luckily, thank God, I'd had some relationships, like I said, like my nan, my cousins in my family, where I could be more relaxed around them. But of course, unconsciously, there was still an issue around trust. And I've realized this growing up. If you can't fully trust people, you can't trust yourself, you're not going to be happy. Stuff like self-sabotaging, depression, anxieties, and you can't get away from it. You cannot. I tried all the types of escapism. I tried through violence, I tried through drugs, and it didn't help. And I started to realize as I got older that I let people bully me. I let my mum bully me, I let my dad bully me, I let family members bully me, and they bullied me socially. So I got bullied socially also by my friends. This went on for many years. I got bullied in relationships with girlfriends because physically I could stand up for myself. And sometimes friends were afraid of me physically. But it's so painful when you can't defend yourself socially. You can't have your own opinion. You can't really disagree, or you can't even tell someone that you like them and you want to further the friendship. You're trapped. You're not just trapped in your thoughts and your feelings. You're trapped everywhere. And this starts projecting out in the exterior world. You're scared to go to places. I was always feeling scared that I was going to get into fights, and that nervous energy seemed to always attract trouble, and I always seemed to get bullied. And that's why I became really aggressive, especially about 21, 22, and I just thought, I'm not going to have this anymore. And it was only in my latter 20s My dad stopped the physical abuse, but the social abuse still carried out, the subtleties of manipulation. I became very aware of it. I became very sensitive towards dishonesty. And I lived a dishonest life for many years. And it's very uncomfortable to say it, because my dad was a dishonest man. He was cheating and lying and tricking me and being horrible and being nice to gain power. And I knew this wasn't right, because my nan didn't treat me like that. So I'd already had that reference experience. And of course I met a lot of good people in the world. I met good school teachers. So even though, and when you don't trust yourself psychologically, you've got a mental illness or a social phobia, even when you do get proof that someone can be trustworthy, you don't trust yourself. So you're still back to this predicament where they trust themselves, they're offering you friendship, but you don't trust yourself. So of course it creates this thing where you can't be yourself. You know who your true self is, but you can't be it. Because when I was myself, you called me a stupid cunt, you told me to shut my mouth. And I seem to almost project that pattern of fear in other people. So people didn't really seem to listen to me when I spoke. I used to think that my voice sounded pathetic. I didn't want to speak. I was riddled with embarrassment. It started with these little subtle things that started to become a problem for me. So if I was to go to the Chinese and buy some food, my mum would say, would you go over and get some food? I just dreaded that interaction at the counter with the cashier or the person serving me food. I just wanted to hurry up, get the food, get out the shop. I couldn't deal with it. Social interaction was painful. And I remember in conversations with people, I couldn't even hear what they were saying, because my internal monologue, those voices, were so negative. I couldn't be present. I couldn't concentrate. I had lots of problems around concentrating. And sometimes I'd be in that state, and when I felt good, I felt great, but it wasn't consistent enough. And I didn't want to live a life like that. I didn't want to be on job seekers allowance. I didn't want to be a carpenter and joiner. My dad forced me into jobs I didn't want to do, and that's why I kept losing jobs. I didn't enjoy the jobs. I wanted to be successful. I didn't quite know what I wanted to do, but I had a really good idea as to what I didn't want to do. And it sort of dawned on me in the sort of later 20s, I didn't enjoy my relationships. I didn't trust the friends I was around. It was really hurtful, and I tried to escape it for a long time, and they were holding me back. And I couldn't fully be myself around them. I didn't trust them. And it was that same pattern. And that pattern was the exact pattern with my dad. And I thought, I'm going to put a stop to this. So this has been, this has been over the course of many years. This wasn't something that I just did in a weekend. And the understanding I've got now is only because I healed myself. It was only because I healed myself of counselling, self-healing, and getting a mentor, and then becoming a full-time teacher. And before I really went right to the root of the problem, I had to go down a dishonest path. I had to go out and learn how to seduce women and have sex with women, but I did it in a different personality. And this is all back to that whole Freudian concept of abandoning yourself. And betrayal of the self is the most hurtful thing. All the money in the world, all the attention, you can't get away from it. You can stop it for a while, you can block it out, and this is the same pattern I'm helping people through. So I knew what the truth was, and I personally, I did confide in God. I didn't care anymore about what people thought or who said you're mad for believing this or believing that. I wasn't bothered. I followed my feelings. My feelings never let me down. Whenever I didn't listen to my feelings, I listened to the voices in my head. Low self-esteem, negative, dishonest relationships, getting into fights, drugs, tension around my family, because I was abandoning my emotions. That's why I had so many emotional problems with anger, with frustration, paranoia, lots of paranoia. I was always paranoid that people were conspiring to try and start on me. So abuse, childhood abuse, leads to all these things. It's all normal. These are all the symptoms. So if you've gone through this, you're not mad, and you have got a right to stand up to it. So I knew, for me personally, this is what I personally had to do one day. I had to go and confront my dad. I had to go and tell him, and I wanted to do it. I wanted to rise above it. I wanted to be even better. I didn't want to do it violently. I wanted to do it with social confidence. Something that was taken away from me. This man took away my innocence when I was younger. He took away my ability to speak my mind and to be myself. He abandoned me psychologically, and I abandoned myself. So I spent many years practicing, and my practice entailed not just speaking to people, that was one area, it was facing my fears. So I guess it wasn't in any particular order, but this is all unconscious to start with. I always struggled around women. Maybe because my relationship with my mum wasn't great. And it's really sad to say that, but because when I was younger, I thought I had a good relationship with my mum. It was only since getting into my, when I've turned 30, I'm going to be 33 this year. And as I said, overcoming this trauma in the last 2 years, I realised that I didn't have a really good relationship with my mum. It wasn't really open. It was just very restricted. Yeah, there was love. Of course I love my mum to bits, but emotionally, conversation-wise rather, I couldn't speak to her. Couldn't speak to her without arguments and getting angry, because I was just, and you realise when people have been hurt or been abused, they're not angry because they're bad people, they're angry because they're hurt. You know, this is because you've been traumatized. That's what trauma does. It literally traumatizes you. You can't speak to people. But I was very brave. I stood up to it. And I've said it before, it's not just the physical abuse, it's the after effects. That's probably what's worse. It's the voices in the head, when every time you try and go for a new job, or you try and start a new relationship, or you wanna do anything that you feel that's from your heart that you want to do, the voices come up, not just of the person that abused you, but other voices. Voices of friends, voices of your teachers, voices of your parents. And I knew it wasn't right. I wasn't being snobby, I wasn't being prejudiced towards anyone else, but I knew just because certain family members haven't addressed their own fears and insecurities, that doesn't mean I need to take their fears and insecurities on. I actually want to deal with my own fears and insecurities, and I always knew that my main insecurity was people. If I could get my head around it, and that makes sense, my head around it, and I could build the self-esteem and be myself, be confident to be who I am and to speak up, I would build the right relationships. I'd obviously be able to get the job I wanted to do. I'd be able to make an honest living and fall in love, get a girlfriend, get a partner, and live a normal life. And that's what used to always go from hell. I used to think, I'm not normal. The relationship with my family ain't normal. We're not communicating. It was so hurtful. It didn't matter about, okay, the Christmases were great, we did have good times, but the good times did not make up for the bad. And all those beatings, all the swearing and the shouting and all the tension, it was more worrying when things were going well, because I was always worried, is he going to start again? Is he going to go mad? Is he going to kick off? I couldn't live like that no more. And the fear was them abandoning me. My dad abandoning me and my mum abandoning me, and then that psychological fear of in the back of your mind going, if they abandon me, I'm not going to be loved, I'll be on my own. You physically feel like that. And that's when I had suicidal thoughts at 25 and just thought, I'm sick of this, and I can't get a psychologist, I can't get help, because people are going to say, you know, you're soft, you're weak, and then I'm going to lose my temper and I'm going to go and do violent things. And that's why I was violent for so many years. And people are always trying to scratch head and think, why does he seem so timid, he's quiet and shy, and then when we bully him he goes crazy? Because I didn't know how to speak to people. You know, I knew how to speak, I was too afraid to speak, and I stuttered when I spoke. And that comes from trauma. All these kind of social problems of Asperger's or nervousness or awkwardness, that comes from a trauma. That's not for no reason, you're not born with that. So when I spoke to my dad and I came in, this was not too long ago, after years of healing. I just really want to share this, not as a way to brag, just to show people what I achieved, so people know that what I teach and my journey, it worked, and it was honesty. And I went down a really dark path to start with. I'm really ashamed of lots of the things I did. I cheated on lots of women, I took drugs, I paid prostitutes for sex. I'd done lots of bad things because I was hurting, and I had a lot of self-hatred. I was ashamed, I was afraid to believe in God in case people criticize me and judge me. I just had a real identity crisis. So I improved my confidence with women. And I never thought, I'll be straight with you, I thought I was ugly, because my dad had called me stuff like this on many occasions. People at school, lots of bullying, that just created lots of these voices. They were reoccurring. And I thought women thought I was ugly, I thought my face was ugly, I didn't like my body, I had a real issue around my body. That's why I went to the gym for years. I was fanatical, I built up a good physique. My body was good, but inside I felt worthless, I'm not joking. My self-esteem, and I don't mean this disrespectfully because I love homeless people, but I was no difference in self-esteem, just that I lived in a house I had a basic salary, but I felt absolutely worthless. At 25, I thought, I just want to kill myself, I want to get out of here, I've had enough. I can't stand my dad, I can't stand what he's done to me, I can't stand the life I'm living, I can't stand the dishonesty, the lies. Everyone around me is wearing a mask, I'm wearing a mask, there's no hope. I don't have the self-esteem to find good people, and I always wanted to get around good, honest people, other than like my nan. My nan was the only person I could really trust, be myself, be vulnerable with. And this is the God's honest truth. If it wasn't for my nan, I probably wouldn't be here now. I probably wouldn't be alive. That's why I'm so thankful. I'm so grateful for having such a beautiful nan and such a caring, honest nan who just gave me a lot of emotional support. And it was a support that I really needed from my dad, and I couldn't get it because he was the person who hurt me, and I didn't know how to ask for it. I didn't know how to say, Dad, I'm hurting, I'm in pain, you've caused me pain, I need, you know, or Mum. I couldn't. As soon as I tried to speak to Mum about it, I don't think she could handle it. I think it just brought up fears, and it maybe reflected on their own issues. And it was really hurtful, as I said. It was a horrible feeling because I didn't want to tell people about this, because how can you go and tell people that your family have hurt you and you don't trust them? And you don't even trust anyone to talk to. So I bottled it up for years, and that was the worst thing I ever did. I could have addressed this a long time ago, and it took me till age 30 to go and have a conversation with my mum and my dad separately and get everything out in a calm way. And my dad fell apart. I don't mean he fell apart emotionally, he cried, but he just was he was shocked because I stood up to him non-violently. And of course at this age no more, he couldn't physically get the better of me, and he knew it. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go one better. I wanted to follow what God had instructed me to do, what I felt right, what I felt. I wanted to do it with love, and I wanted to do it with compassion, but I wanted to be straight and firm. And I said, you damaged me when I was younger, you bullied me all my life, and you made me frightened of men, you made me violent, and I wasn't happy with how you treated me, and it's wrong what you did. And he was dumbfounded, he was shocked. He went into a bit of denial, which is common. People want to deny, they don't want to see what they've done because they want to try and make excuses, but he couldn't deny it. I looked him straight in the eye and I was as calm as I am now. And I think I said a quote from the Bible, and he was sorry. But you know what was good for me? Because I speak to lots of people, I wasn't really bothered about whether he was sorry or not. I needed to tell him what he did to me, and for my own peace sake, for my own self-respect, and for my own honesty. Honesty was important for me. I got sick and tired my whole life of living this dishonest life, not at the cost of me being a dishonest person, because I was terrified, because I was scared and I was afraid of death. I thought I was so much paranoia. I thought my own dad was going to kill me. I thought life itself would kill me just for opening up and telling the truth. But I knew one day that my message, I knew that my story, which I believe is from God, my honesty would help other people, and that would be, I don't know, somewhere around the area that I would help people in. And I knew that I'd help people with confidence, because you're probably the same as me if you've been through it. I'm actually really confident, and that was because I faced my fears over the course of years, and I got really good with women, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way, and I don't even know if that is something to get good at, you know, because people say they're good at art, they're good at speaking, they're good at literature, films, or connecting people. But you know, I dated lots of women, and then I started to teach men how to do it. So that was one fear I overcome, because you know, I had lots of fears around women and sex, and of course the relationship with my dad reflected with women and family. So I started to slowly start to build more trust with people and women, and it took a long time, but it gradually started to get better, and of course that trust reflected back in me. Then I realized that I wanted to do something more honest and go deeper, and I started to work on the deeper aspects of my anxieties. Now I'm teaching people how to overcome this social anxiety and trauma. And it's such a relief when you're honest. And I'll just share this with you. Doesn't matter how difficult or how uncomfortable, if you tell the truth and you're honest, people can't say nothing. You can't challenge the truth, you can't question it. People can try, but the truth is the truth. And the truth is what my dad did was wrong. And that was the only way I was able to forgive him, because for years I absolutely hated him, I despised him, and I was sickened by what he did. And it made me hate myself, and I just felt it was so unfair. But I got to a stage where I thought, I'm not going to be a victim. I'm not going to cry about it, because I've done all the crying. I'm not going to take my anger out on other people, because it's not other people's fault. As my nan said, other people don't owe you a living, but it's my responsibility. And all this be a man or you're not being a man, this is being a man. because most people let their fears keep them trapped, and all these voices and all these horrible feelings, and these affect every area of your relationship. And after that, I knew that I didn't need my dad's approval. I don't need anyone's approval. I just need my approval from myself. So, and then I had a conversation with my mum, and things started to really improve for me. I mean, before I did all this, I improved a lot, but it's still, you know, I still had a lot of pain. So getting a mentor was the final hurdle. And this is why I'm a good teacher. And this is why I'm confident. I'm not confident just because I went up and down on the street and spoke to women. I think I've mentioned this before. I've done public speaking for 4 years. I've lost count of how many events I've spoken in an audience of 40, 50 people, 30 people regularly. And I was a person who was shy. I was considered, you know, anxious, shy, and according to, you know, some members of family and teachers at school and friends, almost disabled. And I disproved that. And now people listen to my message all around the world. I've got almost 5 million views on YouTube. I've got almost 26,000 subscribers, and I transform people's lives all around the world. So it's not bad, is it? It's not bad for someone that was considered a stupid cunt, and sorry my language, and, you know, wasn't capable of doing stuff. So when I started to overcome my own fears, I was able to understand my dad more and find more compassion, forgive him, realise people are human, they make mistakes. But some mistakes are costly. But thank God, I had a good faith in God. I had a lovely nan, I had some really good people that helped me, and I've been able to forgive my mum and dad. But yeah, and it was all about being honest. It was about actually bringing honesty out in all areas. So it was being honest in my relationships, it was being honest in my teaching. It was just that was it, the honesty. The honesty has got a profound effect on giving you the answer. You know, that conversation that we so badly want to have with someone, whether it's a parent, a friend, a brother, a sister, we need to have that conversation, because if we don't have that conversation, it gets stored up and it becomes depression, it becomes anxiety, and then you don't even realize it unconsciously. That is affecting all areas of your life. It's creating more and more fear. So running away from the fear didn't help things for me. Going into fear, facing it and doing it, and was able to speak to my dad without using violence, something I never really thought I could do. And that's where my anxieties were around with people, thinking that I can't really talk things out, or if I disagree with someone, they're going to try and take advantage, then I'm going to be violent. And I didn't want to live like that. I didn't enjoy being violent. That's not the person I was. That was just a consequence of the environment I was in. So for me, the honesty, the love and courage, always had courage since I was a kid, stood up to what wasn't right. So I hope this has inspired you, and that's how you stop the voices in your head. That's how you stop the voices that say, well, if I do this, what's this person going to think? What's this person going to think? Of course, this video is about love, honesty, integrity, but you can't not do things at the cost of other people making your life a misery, especially if they're the ones that created and put misery on you. But you can't, I've also learned you can't fight fire with fire. If someone does you wrong, and you do them wrong in that context, it won't solve it, it'll just make it worse, sorry. So that's how you do it. A good strong faith in God, or whatever God you believe in, but love and honesty. No matter how uncomfortable it is, you say it and it gets better. And all my confidence came back, all that shyness went away. I felt that extroverted part of me come out, and I've been able to share my teaching with other people and direct them and support them and help them to change their life on my 6 weeks program. And it's very inspiring. It's made me forgive myself. It's made me look back and say, oh, I can see why that happened. And as you know, as uncomfortable it was at the time, it was a blessing in disguise. It was God saying to me, you've been through this wasn't nice, but I'm putting you on a good path. So there's a reason. And of course, I've met so many like-minded people that have been through stuff, and that's why I've been able to continuously forgive my dad. But that was a story, that's the truth, and that's how I overcome my social anxiety. And the rest of my story is on YouTube. If you really want to follow all my story, I know it's a lot of videos, but all my videos on YouTube, and I've spoken about mistakes I've made, I've spoken about the things I did right, and that's why my life is transformed. So I hope that's inspired you, and this is pretty much the conversation I had with this girl today that I've been coaching, and it's really helping her to go into her fears and to build her confidence. Confidence is very important, self-esteem, trust. So last thing I'll leave you with, and my mentor has said this on many times and I want to share it with you, you don't have to worry about trusting your mum, your dad, your friend, your girlfriend, your partner. You just have to worry about trusting yourself. So the way you trust yourself is to be yourself, is to gradually take off your mask. I've done this in other videos, and start being yourself. And being yourself, it's not just talking about in personality, because that is a massive part of being yourself. It's how you live, it's the people you're around. So lots of people I work with go out, and I did this myself, and do bad things, take drugs or pay for sex, and they're doing that because they're afraid. They think if they don't do that, their friends are going to leave them. So they're actually abandoning themselves at the cost of not being rejected by people. But you cannot be rejected when you're your true self. You always attract the right people, and that's what I've continued to do. So love you, enjoy the process. That's my story. I hope it helps.